So it is 7 o'clock. We'll call the meeting to order. Ruth, would you take roll, please?
Andy Hitchcock.
Here.
Mike Malloy.
Here.
John Buda.
Here.
Martin O'Toole.
Here.
Cindy Matejka.
Here.
All right. First thing on our agenda is actually to review the minutes. Ruth notified me we have one item that needs correction before she can finish reviewing the notes. So for the December notes, we will actually review those and approve them in February. However, we do need to clarify, we made a motion for 804 Bell Road, but did not have a second. So in order to make a correction, I will reread the motion and I will ask for a second and we will restate our votes. It was a unanimous vote in favor of approving 804 Bell Road.
Oh.
Are we clear on that mumbo jumbo that I just said?
Yes.
All right. So for BZA case number 24-10 for the property located at 804 Bell Road, I make a motion to approve an area variance of 9.24 feet from the west lot line, so a structure can be built no closer than 15 feet from the property line. Do I have a second?
I second.
Cindy, thank you for seconding that. Is there any discussion or clarification required on the motion? Fantastic. Ruth?
Andy Hitchcock.
Yes?
Mike Malloy.
Yes.
John Buda.
Yes.
Martin O'Toole.
Yes.
Cindy Matejka.
Yes.
All right. So we got the hard one out of the way. Before we get into tonight's agenda, we would like to swear in anyone who's planning to give testimony. So if you do plan to speak tonight on any motion, any of the subjects in front of us, we do need you to raise your right hand and follow right.
Please raise your right hand if you intend to speak or testify. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you give tonight is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Yes.
Fantastic. So with that, we will begin with agenda item number 1, BZA case number 25-01, a height variance for 120 Ashley Drive. Who is here to speak on that tonight?
Rob Myers.
Rob Myers. Thank you very much. Can you give the board just a little overview of what you're trying to accomplish?
So the client has directed us to build a pool and pool house. We're here for the pool house. That's really all there is. The pool house has a limited kitchen in it. There's a little living area, and then we're going to keep the equipment for the pool inside one of the storage rooms of the pool house. It cuts down on the noise and everything. So the pool house, considering the length of the pool house, we determined to break up the roof element with the cupola, which actually we're going to frame that in so that the ceiling of this weight room-ish kind of space, the living room of the pool house, will actually go up into the cupola, and the windows of the cupola will be seen from underneath.
Okay. Anything from the board, and you'll have an opportunity to share more if you'd like. John, go ahead.
Is the cupola structure necessary?
The way the house is designed right now is,
You mean if it came off, the building would collapse?
well, we're incorporating the structure cupola into the framing of the ceiling, so.
But if you didn't have the cupola, I assume you would put in structure.
Yeah, I mean, the building would fall down if we took it off.
So it's primarily for aesthetic and light purposes?
Yeah.
Okay. Just asking. Might be moot because even if the cupola variant isn't approved, the roof is still 18 feet, so something inches, so it's still above the 15-foot height anyway, roof line. Okay, those are my questions. Thank you.
My question to you kind of echoes John's, just looking for clarification. So to the top of the roof line, it's going to be 18 feet, 11 inches, and the cupola itself would add another 4 feet and 1 inch.
Roughly, yeah.
Okay, so we're talking 23 feet to the top of the
20
cupola.
feet to the top of it.
Okay, but as John said, it's still, the building itself is beyond code as it's drawn without the cupola.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if I may, y'all knew going in what the zoning was, so you, and I'm not fault finding, I'm just clarifying. And so you, knowing what the zoning was, you embarked on something that is just really not in the zoning. It's really not consistent with the zoning. Is that right?
Well, as we're designing these structures, we want the architecture to be pleasing. So we're not looking to make something that's gonna look ugly or flat or squatty or anything like that, so we wanna keep everything in proportion.
Sure.
So we did that. And, you know, that is also in keeping with what the goals are for all the different rules in all the city codes, is we don't wanna have ugly things built. So
Yeah.
you want the architect to have a little bit of leeway to be able to incorporate good design elements.
So,
If you didn't have the cupola, could you put another peak lower somehow into the roof design to make it a little more aesthetic so it would break it up? I mean, not so high, but something in between the two.
We'd have to flatten the pitch. If we wanted to have this conform to the code, we'd have to turn it into a flat pitch, a flatter pitch. And the length and width of the building would cause it to look squatty. So.
Okay.
Considering the house that it's, so the relationship of that, you can see on the site plan of the pool house to the house is a pretty decent sized house with some high roofs on it as well. And so we wanted the pool house to complement the overall design of what's already there. So and I think we did that. I mean, it's nowhere near the height of the main roof of the main house, but it is similar to the height of some of the other elements on the house. So we designed it in keeping with that.
So predominantly, the roof height and therefore the cupola height is dominated by the size of the structure to maintain proportion?
It's a math thing, right? If it's so wide and you run the roof a certain way, then you have a certain length of rafter, it goes up a certain height at a certain pitch. So we didn't want the pitch of the pool house to be extreme, but we wanted it to be enough so that it didn't clash with the pitches on the main house.
So if the building was smaller, could you maintain those proportions and bring things down? Maybe not to code, but bring things down?
I mean, if we made it smaller, sure, but then it wouldn't have what the people want to have in it.
Well, by that logic, they could make it as big as the house if it would fit on the property, so. Again, functionally, is there anything that would prevent the structure from being smaller in footprint?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We're trying to incorporate all the pool equipment inside it. There's a little living area inside there as well that relates to the pool and the use of the pool, the way that people want to use it in terms of having entertainment and their family there, things like that. So yeah, those things do drive the size of it, and they did drive the size of it. What limited the size of it was what the people wanted to pay for and the cost of it. So there was a push-pull on the whole thing, and so the size of this was determined by balancing those features.
So a portion of the building is truly functional for the maintaining of the pool,
100%.
and then the balance is for living.
Not living, it's not habitable per se, but there's a little changing area and a bathroom and a little kitchenette inside there.
Okay, yeah, thanks.
So you said keeping with the design elements of the main house, being shorter or lower than the main pitch of the roof of the house. Are you kind of following the design? As I looked at the house from the front, there are, I guess, all gables, or I'm not sure what the appropriate term is, but so you're maintaining consistency with those, kind of a shorter version of that in the backyard?
Trying to use those elements in order to incorporate this into the overall property so that as a whole, it relates to it in a sort of a holistic architectural way.
Okay.
So we're using similar shape, in terms of the siding and things like that, which you guys aren't interested in here today, but yes.
Okay.
And the roof is the same roof as on the main house.
Okay. And my second question, it just based on the drawing, it looks as if the building is going to be set back into the woods a little bit. They're taking down trees in the back, or is that just not to scale?
There's a couple
With
of
the
trees
landscaping.
that will come out, yeah.
Okay.
It's actually quite a good distance to the back, so there's
Okay.
most of the woods is staying. There's a few trees that are right behind where this is. The customer wanted to have a specific distance from the back of the house to the edge of the pool because they have young grandchildren now.
Okay.
And they just, for safety, they wanted us to push it back just a little bit, but it's not that far. The edge of the pool is only 35 feet from the house.
Okay.
So it's,
That line that in the white on the bottom, it gave me the impression that was kind of the woods line. I guess I'm saying the square with all the greenery on it is perhaps just not drawn out all the way.
square with all the green.
It shows the picture that shows the trees on it.
Yeah,
Okay.
there's actually there's really only just two good-sized trees that are gonna be affected by that.
Okay. Go ahead, Mike.
On page 8 of this, these plans, shows 35 feet and 9 inches plus or minus for existing roof ridge, is that right?
On the main house?
Yes.
I think so.
So, I don't know how old this house is, but it's not that old. Was there a,
2003.
okay. So, 35 feet, just curious. So, if I look at the slope that you have on the new structure, it does match the main house. Okay. I was just trying to clarify.
Other questions from members of the board? Okay. Anything else from the audience? Okay. Well, then I will make the following motion for BZA case number 25-01 for the property located at 120 Ashley Drive. I make a motion to approve an 8-foot height variance for an accessory structure to permit a pool house with a height not to exceed 23 feet.
Could we have a little bit of discussion before we go to that?
Yeah.
just one
Can we at
question.
least do the second and then the discussion?
Okay, yeah, you're
Would
good.
that be okay?
Okay, that's fine, yes.
Would someone second that?
Second,
Thank you, Mike. And some discussion.
go ahead, Marty.
I think this is different than a lot of things that we see here. And I think, and tell me if I'm understanding right, I don't position this at all in any way disrespectful to yourself or to the homeowner. Very often when things come in here, there's usually like a reason, an access reason or there's reasons why people want things. My understanding of this one is, because this is just what they want, that this is literally just what they want. They want a building with this ambition and this scale, to complement, which I'm sure is a beautiful home, and so what they want is permission to build a structure that satisfies how they want to entertain and how they want to develop their property and all this stuff. Just cognizant of the fact that it's not within the code for the community, but they just want it. And so I think that's what we're talking about, right?
Well,
Seems to be the
if I might, that's partially true. But understand that your code with a 15-foot height restriction on accessory buildings, they're not, that part of your code is not targeted at structures like this, right? It's looking at things like a shed. If you go to 84 Lumber and buy a shed, or something like that as an accessory structure. And so I would say that part of the issue here is that the code is a little bit behind the times, if you will, as to how people are going to use properties going into the future. And maybe that would be something that maybe should be looked at. But for right now, the fact is that more and more people are going to be doing this, and not just in South Russell, but everywhere, where the property values have gone up to a certain point where raw land is a certain level, and they're going to want to do improvements onto existing homes that are going to run afoul of codes that were written back, in the 70s.
Sure, and if I can build, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to speak over you. If I can build on that, and in our community, there really is a diversity of kinds of neighborhoods, and a diversity of kinds of streets, and diversity of kinds of homes. And what might be a good, smart, common denominator for the community overall, there might be streets and neighborhoods here where it's maybe not the right zoning.
If this was in an area where the lots were, say 75 feet wide or 50 feet wide, and they were 3/4 or third of an acre lots, like in some other parts of South Russell, a project like this couldn't ever even go forward. But this is a nearly 4-acre lot. They've got plenty of room. We're not near any of the neighbors. The pool house won't be seen at all from the street. And so it's a very private thing for this family. And it's in an area where, it's not just a storage shed or something like that. It's going to be added to the living of this property and add substantially to the value of it. So you're right that it's what they want, but on the other hand, a 15-foot height restriction, really, when you have an 8-foot wall, that leaves you only 7 feet for the entire roof structure.
Right.
It doesn't leave you much. And so you're gonna run afoul of that restriction almost immediately on anything that's not a storage shed.
Yeah, well said.
Can we vote on it as the cupola separate than the building itself? We have to do it all one way.
To the top of the structure, if this came back to us,
Mhm.
let me say this differently. If we turned down the application and it came back to us without a cupola, we would be revisiting a 3-foot and change variance
Mhm.
instead of an 8-foot variance.
Thank you.
Do we have on the board, in the history of the board or the memory of the board, do we have discussions on other properties that are where an instance like this has come up, where it's really just a different kind of a property relative to many things we see in South Russell, and so what might be appropriate for this property in this neighborhood, it really does merit permission to do things that are appropriate for the property. Do we have anything in the history of the board where we've done that?
So I think every case is judged on its merits, and
Right.
certainly the way we view houses on, Fernwood, where the lots are closer together,
Right.
smaller acreage lots, we view those very differently
Right.
than we do perhaps other larger acreage
Right,
lots. So I think there is an element of subjectivity as a board that we have to consider those elements,
Sure.
consider those concerns.
And sorry, is there any neighbor or anyone here has anyone shared any feedback from neighbors or anyone here to speak on it? No, neighbors were notified, right?
Yes.
I would just build on that, Martin, and just say that the whole reason to have a BZA is exactly for that. Is for you guys you have the rules in the zoning code, but different projects aren't gonna necessarily fit those rules. And that's why there's this board, is in order to consider the appropriateness of what somebody might ask you guys to change on an individual case. You're not changing the whole zoning code. You're saying, well, for this particular property, they did something that's appropriate for what they're trying to do and it fits in, and outside of that one rule, everything else fits.
It's well said.
So quick question, Dave, isn't this, what zoning district is Ashley located in? the R? I don't know.
R1A.
Oh, it is, it's R1A. Which one would be like Chagrin Heights? Is that R1? I mean, they're different zoning districts, correct?
Yeah, it's just, and it goes back to 1947 zoning.
Yeah, you're right, okay.
Is it on the map?
I think it is, that's why I was looking,
Yeah.
like one's brown, right, or like
Yep.
beige and the other one's white.
Right, if you can see that from where you're
Yeah.
sitting.
So definitely
It's amazing.
different. No, the color, it's just the color, that's all I
It
know.
is.
But my point is that obviously there's usually different heights for accessory structures in each of those. And so that's already been considered, quite frankly. And there is obviously the opportunity to, ask for an amendment to the
Right.
zoning code. So.
Yeah. Thanks, Brenda.
Yep.
Other discussion on the motion? All right, Ruth?
Andy Hitchcock?
I'm going to vote yes. Just to clarify my rationale, it's the size of the property, the location of the property being so distant and removed, the impact to the neighbors is minimal, keeping, I'll say, consistency with the house. That's my rationale for voting yes.
Mike Malloy?
Yes.
John Buda?
Yes, and I'd also like to elaborate that the only reason I'm voting for the variance is because it's behind the house and can't be seen from the street.
Roger Scholl?
Yes.
Cindy Matejka?
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Thank
Appreciate
you
your
guys
time.
very much.
All right, so next up on the agenda is BZA case number 25-02 for a structure at 137 Fairview Road. Who do we have here tonight to address us on that? Could you introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, Bill Stone, and my wife Kate here, 137 Fairview Road. Can I give you a little background on this?
Please do. Please go ahead.
2-3 minutes here, if that's okay. We've got 3 lots, Chagrin Falls Heights subdivision, we're the first 3 into South Russell, on the end of the village here. Each lot is 1.8 acres, about 50 feet wide, they're non-conforming lots. We can't do much with the current code. The lots were platted in the 20s. Most of the lots in the neighborhood are 50 feet, there's some that are a little bigger, 60 feet. Most of the houses sit on 1, 2, 3 lots, that kind of thing. Been there about 20 years, had wanted to, I'm an old car guy, and wanted to have a 3-car garage my whole life. Not take up the pity of others to store my cars in the winter, and I'm sure my wife would like to park her car in the winter and be able to open the door and all that kind of stuff. So children, started my own business, elderly parents, all this stuff got away, years rolled by, here we are today. Past couple years, we had to make a decision as to whether we would move and go buy a house with a 3-car garage or build a 3-car garage. So we hired an architect a couple years ago and said, hey, here's what we're interested in. He run across some issues in our house too that related to some stairs that are too steep, things like that. And we ended up with a sizable addition and an attached garage, and we live in a 20s Tudor cottage style house. It's small, it's very charming, quaint, and we were very unsettled with it, didn't want to do it. So changed architects, hired Becky Pantuso here. Becky gave some great ideas, said you don't need an addition, we can work within the confines of your house. So that was good news to us. We still wanted a 3-car garage, but we said, we don't need it attached, let's put it back behind the house. And she came up with some designs that would try and create better proportion and scale. We wanted to match the roof lines of the house with 12-12 pitch, important to do for architecture. Match the style of the house, the 2 house, still get 3 cars. The height helps with the not making it look too squat and wide and long. What else do I have here? So we wanted to relocate it. We currently have our house originally had a garage underneath. It's on a little bit of a hillside. It had a 1-car garage with swing doors, and built in the 20s, part of the Model 8 out here or whatever. And our garage currently was built in the 50s, it's small. We get a lot of flooding in it. Water comes down Hazelwood, runs over the berm, and we've got probably one of the lowest spots in South Russell, unfortunately. So also there's a buried drain pipe that's shown on the drawing there that when we bought the property, we didn't know, no easement or anything for that, but it's there, 30-inch vitrified clay pipe or so. We talked to their engineers about, we talked about that. And, I think that maybe that'll get addressed as part of the projects in that end of the village. But needless to say, keeping the garage in the low part of the yard is bad. So we wanted to move to the other part of the yard, the south part where you can see it here in the drawing. Then we tear down the old garage, take out this old kind of U-shaped driveway and kind of return all that to green space, have a nicer backyard to look at. Talked to our neighbors, sent our drawings that Becky had provided us with to our neighbors. And I've got my neighbor here on one side, our Condas is here. He wrote a letter, I've got a copy of that here. My neighbor across the street, Wayne Siegel, wrote a letter. My other neighbor across the street, Tanner and Annika, are here to speak on our behalf. And then our new neighbor who just moved in on the south side, and bought an Annika property. We just met him. They just took possession of their property a couple of weeks ago. Sent him the plans, and he emailed over a letter as well that no one has any objections. So that's my my story there. So
Okay, very good. Thank you. Bridie, I've got a question for you, and I think it may help offer the board a little perspective. So we've got 3 separate lots. One is vacant, and that's the one that we're talking about infringing upon. Can we reasonably include that extra 0.18 acres into their lot size? So the way that we've been presented with the question is, 500 square feet per acre for accessory structures. The lot itself is 0.54 acres.
Right.
Therefore, the maximum size would be 270 square feet. But the lot size is 0.18 acres, as I'm looking at this. Is that reasonable to think that we should exclude the open lot from the square foot or from the acreage and ultimately be at whatever the math works out to as 0.36 acres, 180 square feet?
You did, I mean, it's a separate parcel?
Yes.
And then, you can deduct
Okay,
and do the 0.36 is what you are.
okay. Because Mr. Stone, you have three
parcels.
3 parcels. As I looked at the map, your home is on the middle of the 3, and I think the existing garage splits the 2 lot lines to the north.
Yeah, I think they're all 1.8 acre.
0.18.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes,
Point.
sorry.
Yeah.
Bit of a distinction. And so I bring that up because, I understand that you own all 3 and you consider yourself to be on a 0.54 acre lot of land, but you're also asking to infringe upon the reason that you need a variance is because you have a separate lot. So I can't reasonably include that in part of your acreage and asking for a bigger structure when realistically you're limited even more than you think, even more than the application is how I am reading that. Am I?
Yes.
Okay.
Correct.
Good.
So I appreciate the clarification, Bridie. A couple other questions for you, and I'm sure the board will have some other questions. Where did we go? How tall is the current house? I'm just trying to get a proportional gap between your residence and the proposed garage.
The architect, I know that off the top of her head.
We'll give her a moment to find that
How do you get drawn this? 20 something, but I don't know. One moment, please.
in. Okay. And the reason I ask, as I drove through the neighborhood a couple times, you have a different style house than most of the neighborhood, at least on Fairview. I think things change a little bit when you get onto Hazelwood with some of the newer houses. I try to understand if you're going to build something that's basically the same height as your existing house and it looks like
No.
a second house
Yeah, for
versus,
sure, definitely not,
okay.
but what?
Thank you. I appreciate that response. And while she is looking for that, and maybe you don't know this, but how tall is the garage next door? I think at the house that just sold.
The garage next door is a couple feet shorter than ours would be, but we're also on a slight hillside, so they might come up close to even, or ours might be in the end a foot or two taller, I'm not sure.
So your proposed garage would sits on a higher
The
elevation?
lower elevation.
Lower, okay.
Yeah, the ground is going down.
Got it.
towards the corner of our yard.
Okay. She's still looking. I've got another question. So you mentioned that the vacant lot that you'd be encroaching, you're not using, but is it buildable as it is today?
They, as far as I know, and I've done the ZBA for a while, that they are buildable lots. So you could end up with a house where we just sell it instead of a garage.
Yeah, and I guess that was one of my thoughts and quite frankly, one of my concerns is that it's vacant today, you own it, it doesn't affect you, but at some point in the future, some vacant lot owner is infringed upon without really having the benefit of a say in the matter. So it's one of the thoughts rolling through my head.
And that was about showing us the number 6 on the schematic.
Yes, the southernmost
Number
of the
6,
three
sorry,
lots.
yep. Got for sale sign in front of it.
I'm not sure I just understood your last statement.
Yeah.
So
you own 3 lots today. If you sell the vacant lot, someone would buy that and presumably with the thought of building a house on it and would have been encroached before they had an opportunity to say, hey, I don't want this garage close to my property line. You know, it doesn't impact you because you own the property today. I mean,
But that would be the opposing side of the street, right? Like if somebody were to buy the other lot, their house would be buffering from the garage. Is that what you're
no,
saying?
If you stand on the street and look at your house, Mr. Stone, you've got a vacant lot. If you put a house there tomorrow or someone else put a house there tomorrow, what you're asking is, can I put my garage closer to that proposed house? I just think with the scarcity of buildable lots in the village, at some point, someone might buy that from you.
and I'm still not understanding fully. The 3 lots stacked across there, if we're to build a garage on the south end that would go with our house. You're saying the garage would encroach on the north lot?
No, on sublot 6, your vacant lot.
Oh, yes, but I mean, we could consolidate the lots after the garage is built. Could consolidate all 3 of them, and then the village would get the green space where the pipe is, solve the village problems as well.
It was one of the considerations that I had is perhaps it doesn't solve all of the issues that you've come to us with, but it would certainly take care of the side yard variance
Yeah, I have no problem.
if you put all 3 lots together.
After this project is approved.
I guess my concern is if you left it alone and then said at some point, I'm going to sell this in the future, a potential home builder could be right on top of your garage.
Yeah, it'd be right on top of my house too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But yeah.
yeah. Mhm.
Mike? You look like you had a question.
I'm just thinking, yeah, I mean,
If I may, so sublot 6, that's the lot that has the for sale sign in it now, is that right? There's,
No.
No,
that's, okay, that was my
That's the house
confusion.
next door, on the other side of the house.
That's the driveway.
So, thank you for clarifying. So when I was looking at the property, and I see your property, and then on the south side of your property, there's an empty lot with the for sale sign on it. Or was that for, that for sale sign was in fact for the next home?
Yes.
Got it, okay, thank you. Got it. I thought it was a vacant lot, okay.
And our neighbor actually did a very nice thing. She consolidated her lots before she sold, so that it would eliminate we were all worried that.
Got it, I get it, thank you.
Yeah, that was a big issue, I know, down there.
This is a question slash statement that can be corrected. The garage to the south, immediately to the south, looks like a barn, I'll call it a barn shape, taller than 15 feet. That's on sublot 6.
No, that's my neighbor.
That's the neighbor.
So that's a property further south than sublot 6.
Yeah, that's not on this,
Huh.
that's beneath this on the front.
I took pictures. Because I thought that garage, I thought was right here.
The neighbor.
The neighbor's.
garage.
Yeah, but,
Mhm.
oh, so how are they saying that? How are they calling sublot 3? Oh, okay, yes, I see, yes. Sublot 6 is my neighbor, yeah. I see what you're saying.
So I'll ask the question again.
Yes, I'm sorry,
The
yeah.
garage, the neighboring garage.
Yes,
That's more than 15 feet. 2-car garage, right about
Yes.
here.
And that's what I think there was a disconnect when you were talking. The house already, there's a garage and a house on sublot 6. So,
I used the wrong number.
okay, yeah.
So-
It's just so far away that might appear to be an empty lot, but it's not.
Right.
That was my confusion, all right, thank you.
When you
So you're
say,
kind of marrying two garages next to each other of
Mhm.
reasonably equal scale. It ranges because the topography, but 26.4, and then the house in the back, because it's a walkout, is 31.6 as a reference point. But just, reasonably close in scale to this other, and they do seem like they're almost on their own lot, like they're mirrored images, and we already talked about the scale and that, but I do think, just one more point of, obviously our endeavor is to not recreate the garage that's there now, which is pretty unsightly. You could flat roof something and comply with the code, but I challenge the board to think about, even though it's not your purview, the aesthetics. We're choosing this 12-12 because it's so appropriate to the house style. And I actually did work hard to try to pull this down by creating, a reverse gable. If we did a 3-car garage, with one gable, we probably would be taller than the house. So we're, we do endeavor to try to bring that down, not only because I don't like to come to these meetings, but, because I want it to be appropriate to the house. And I think it's charming.
you say similar to the garage next door, but it's, 30% bigger in footprint because it's a 3-car garage versus a 2-car garage? Roughly.
Yeah,
Roughly,
that could be true.
roughly.
That could be a fair statement. I did push the third bay back. I'm trying to make it look more diminutive, but you're.
I'd like to clarify, what is the total acreage of the
0.54 acres.
Okay, thank you. All right.
All 3 combined.
As I heard 1.18, I heard 0.18. I just wanted to thank you, Mike. All right. Now, thanks for the topographical map. So you certainly have a hill here that runs down to the current garage. I anticipate there's going to need to be some fill in order to have it level, or are you going to somehow sink the
Yeah, if
this level
anything,
here?
so if you're, you kind of see how those 2 lines come off the side porch. And
Maybe you could just
garage back.
come up and point them out to us.
I would choose this grading line
Mhm.
as your driveway
Right.
and your garage. So technically, yeah, you're 6 inches. This will get carved out, right? And then you don't have 1076 on here, but yeah, right there.
Okay.
So you're 1.5 feet Probably 3 foot.
So
You
so
know,
there's gonna
on the-
need to be some fill on this portion where the slope is?
Oh, sure,
Yeah.
sure. Yeah, so if you're cutting this out, you're putting that there. That is true.
And the reason for my question is, if you're gonna add fill, was there consideration given to adding fill down where the existing garage is and raising that up to avoid the flooding problems?
Yeah, I think they would be excited to do anything to avoid the flooding problems. Now, that, I'm not ashamed to say is above my pay grade, and I would defer to an engineer to find that sweet spot of
Just
how to move that, yeah.
primarily asking what's possible.
Yeah,
If there's gonna be fill anyway, an option within code, whether excluding the footprint, the square footage, but at least the side yard setback, and maybe the height, but that's another issue too, but at least the square footage, the side yard setback could be obviated if the new garage was in the area of the old, the current existing garage.
and not solve the water
Well,
issues or.
I mean, that's what I'm saying, if it was, I'm just
Yeah, no, I'm
brainstorming here a little
receiving
bit.
your
but
words.
Considering options other than a side yard setback, a height, and square footage, but.
So there's
anyway.
two things come into play. Where we have sort of a new side porch here, south side of the house.
Yeah.
Right now, we're using that basement door, or driveway, U-shaped driveway that comes around on the north side. It's like a big J, picture sideways J.
Right.
Yeah.
That's
Um,
where you're.
And so we'd like to start entering on the first floor, not going into our basement all the time. Make it a little easier for life dogs. Our stairs are going to be on that side of the house. And so we've got 2 sets of stairs in 2 different places, and they're both insanely steep. It's like they reverse the rise and run when they go backwards. So we stack those together under Becky's plan, and we get 3 more feet in our insanely small kitchen, which would be incredibly valuable. So we're trying to solve all kinds of problems, and ultimately which side we're going to enter the house was key to solving some of those problems. The driveway's it's unusual, it's strange, hard to back up, and hard to, it's just a difficult setup the way it is. And that being the lowest part possibly in the village, as we talked about. I mean, when they did the aggregate on Hazelwood, every time it storms, that aggregate ends all the way up behind our garage. I mean, it's quite a lot of water. My neighbor Rick here filmed it. It looked like Niagara Falls coming down the street. I mean, 6 inches a foot deep, once or twice a year. And when my garage floods, which it does about 2 or 3 times a year, the water's up to the rims on the cars. It goes down in an hour or 2, but the garage is damp for, depending on the humidity levels, a week or 2. The tools are rusted. It just sucks, in a nutshell. It was just a terrible place to put a garage in the 50s. They never should have done it. And then also, I think if we try to do something, we did flesh out all these things as we were trying to come up with what to do. And I think if we put a 3-car down there, we would be getting awful close to that pipe, which is that very pipe, which is there, so there. Yeah. Mayor Kuntz knows a little bit about the situation with that, which was
Is that this?
Yeah. And so that was open until, I guess, the 70s, and a pipe was put in by the city with a vault at each end. And it's blocked, it's collapsing. There were no easements for it. It was kind of a handshake situation at the time. And it just seemed to be, if we go for the high ground with the garage, nice straight flat driveway, we solve a lot of problems with all the water issues, with the pitch of the driveway in the wintertime. Sometimes truck tires aren't great, we get in trouble. My wife backed off the driveway this morning. It's okay.
More questions, Sean?
Maybe not questions, but can I chat with the
Please do.
This particular case to me revolves mostly around the size of the footprint. The footprint's roughly 93% the footprint of the house. So it's more than 90% the square footage footprint of the house. And to me, it's almost like building a second house there. The other two requests for variances on the height and the side yard setback all stem from the overall size. Because it can't really be moved north because the slope of the hill would have to be filled in even more. So if it was a 2-car garage or that size, whatever, then that would probably obviate the side yard setback because it could be moved north. The southern wall could be moved north. And then maybe the height would come down a little bit because it's not quite as big. So for me, this case, pretty much my strongest considerations are around the overall size relative to the character of the neighborhood. Anyway, that's just where my thinking is coming from.
Appreciate it, John. Thank you. Other thoughts or questions from the board?
This is probably irrelevant, but I question, do you know the people who bought that the property next door to you? Are they knocking the house down and building something
No.
else there?
Yeah, they're working on it to restore it. They just put the furnace in.
Oh, they are going to restore the building,
Yeah.
that house, because it's in pretty good. That would make another, because your driveways would be right next to you're going to be right next to each other, your driveways and garages, like we were saying. Okay, but they're keeping the house as is. Okay.
I did tour the neighborhood and I didn't see anything other than the one next door, which is a 2-car garage. I didn't see anything of this magnitude or similar.
There is a 3-car garage on one street, but it's attached to a home. It's not detached. It's on like Laurel or somewhere. I can't remember if it's Laurel or Fern, but it's right over there. But that's the only one I've seen that's.
Mike, do you have comments or thoughts, questions?
I don't have questions. I mean, if I'm just thinking or sharing my thoughts out loud, I mean, I think I do take into consideration, he's trying to solve some problems that he's dealing with. He's choosing to reinvest in the neighborhood and put money, reinvest, make an investment in his property, which obviously I in what John is saying, I can appreciate his concerns, but at the same time, I look at, what Mr. Stone would be, investing in his property, and I take that into my consideration, so.
I will add my comments and thoughts. John, I think I'm aligned with you relative to the magnitude of the request. I think from an architectural standpoint, it actually blends in quite nicely with a house. I am concerned that it's, my words, not what the math says, but basically a second house by perimeter, if you will. And I realize we have challenges with that part of the village. I mean, the lots are small. There are nuances, as we said with our last case, things we would do differently here than we would with a 4-acre property, with no neighbors. So I'm struggling a little bit there. John, as he said, I think, if you could obviate some of these challenges by putting it in a different location. And we are all sympathetic to water issues in the village of South Russell. Mm-hmm. Please don't misunderstand. And I wouldn't want you to put something there just because, it's the only place, but I do struggle a bit with the location and with the size of it. So just my thinking at this point.
Yes.
Mike, go ahead.
I certainly respect everyone's opinion. I just want to add, knowing, some the comment was brought up, it could be done, right? Like we could put it in a different place. We could raise it up. We could bring in fill and all of those things. That totally changes the price tag on this type of project. And I'm just raising that. I mean,
Yep.
there's a lot of things that can be done, but very quickly become cost prohibitive. So, go ahead. That's it.
Let's see again, Mr. Stone, go ahead.
This lady, Jim,
We live on the street, so we would be the ones most impacted by this, and I am all for it.
Can you introduce yourself, by the way?
Oh,
Just-
sorry, Monica Payne, and we live 128 Fairview, so we're across from the house that just sold.
Okay.
Directly across, we look into each other. So we plan on dying on the street, so we don't ever want to move again. But this would affect us, and we are absolutely for it. The Stone's been planning this. We've been in Ohio 2.5 years now, and this has been a dream of theirs since we met them 2.5 years ago when we moved onto the street. And they have done this so correctly, so thoughtfully. So they have done this just so amazingly. They have such appreciation for the street. It's been such a joy for us to live on the street where people really care about the street, and it's such a great community. And as Mike said, like the money that the Stones are willing to put into this property, that will only help this whole street. And I don't care that it's a 3-car garage. That doesn't bother me. That makes them happy. It's their property. It's their dream. This will make their lives happier, which makes the whole street happier.
thank you.
Appreciate that.
A couple comments, thoughts.
Could you introduce yourself,
Tanner
please?
Payne, one
Thank
with
you.
Fairview. I've seen drawings, I've done some visuals just mentally with it next to the sublot 6. And I think the current garage structure, the 2-car garage, is only 6 feet from the property line, or somewhere, is someone that actually know?
10.
10?
The neighboring one?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, she's closer than the 15.
It's
for
something
sure.
like 6 to 8 feet. So anyway, most of the properties, most of the houses in our neighborhood, even though they're 70-year-olds, none of them are to code because they were built before. And so we're not generally when things are coming up and people are asking for variances, it's within the norm of what our street is like. So a 6-foot, an 8-foot, a 10-foot variance to the property line is almost every building on our street is that close to the property, just because that's how they were all built. So with the garage being, I think it's a 10-foot, what is that?
Yes.
This is 10-foot side variance, it would actually be farther away from the property line than the structure next door. So it'll look very well. It's like we were saying, it's a mirror property. It's only a foot taller in overall height than the current structure on Sublot 6. That matches with the house, it's gonna match with the size of their house. And it's also, the last thing that was mentioned was the size of it. Yeah, it might be a large property, but compared to the other buildings on the street, the square footage isn't that much. It's not their fault, their house was built on a tiny footprint. If their house had been a larger footprint, which the questions would be coming up. But with the property next door, their total footprint might be 1,000 square feet more, and their garage doesn't seem maybe as big in comparison, but because of this Tudor style, yeah, it's gonna have a little bit different look. But within the visuals and having a garage relocated and the green space brought back, it's more just a shift in where we're going to have buildings and structures. And final note was, in other meetings that we've been to with water issues, the entirety of the subdivision's water runs through their backyard. And so unless the city wants to come in and replace all the pipes and raise it and spend all the money where it should have been spent 70 years ago, then this is a great option for them to be able to use space, but also let it flood, let nature do its thing, and move 1 million gallons of water twice a year, whenever we get floods. So that's all I got.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, I was just, oh, sorry.
The young lady behind you.
I'm trying to say something, and you are the homeowner, so.
Oh, go ahead.
Well, I'm Connie Woodbury, I'm new on the block, I'm actually next to these guys, so I'm more kitty corner from you guys than even they are, but, one thing that comes to mind is if you're gonna spend all this money on a garage that you do need to not flood, and that you do want to house your vehicles, which you bought the house with the idea of being able to do so, I mean, it would be a huge risk to try to fix the land and do all the drainage and put even more money into it and yet not maybe even solve the problem. And that would be a risky venture to take that chance in my mind. You really don't want to mess with that and put all that money in and not have it work well. So to go to the higher side of the lot makes so much sense. I mean, I get the impression that one lot 5 is only 0.18, which is much smaller than the other two. Is that true? Because how do you add 3 at 1.18 and equal 0.54? It must be smaller than the others?
I believe they're all about the same, but they're number one, so I'm not sure.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Well, and then my second point was that is it that much of a time and complication to conflate or to make, bring the lots under one on ownership so that there's not this conflict of, oh, this is a separate lot. If you sold it separately, this could be a problem in the future. If you do that piece, that might make it simpler for the board, but also maybe not take too much time away from being able to start this project. I don't know, just a thought.
Yeah, I appreciate your comments, Bridie. I know we often make subject to, would it be out of the question, make a subject to putting all 3 lots together under a single lot number? Like, I mean, is that an acceptable
It is, that's a reasonable.
condition?
Yes,
Okay.
a reasonable condition.
That's a good
Ask a sub question on that. Would the sublot 5 even have the ability to build a house because of the zoning properties? Would your house be 10 feet wide because of your varying requirements to the edge of the property?
I'll defer to Dave, but as I was doing the research, there are other lots in the area that are 0.18 acres, and there's a single house on it. So,
Same width.
Yeah.
So the answer, yes, it is buildable. It might not be a very big house, but it's,
Be small.
okay.
But it would be approximately 10 feet wide.
The
It would
house.
just be very
Yeah.
narrow.
Could be a longer.
Indeed.
Because you're, roughly 40
Yeah.
foot wide, so 15 off of each side.
Right.
If the house were to go there, they will
They will be in front of us.
They would be here
Yes.
asking for,
I believe the
For
main
sure.
house is only 10 off of each setback though. It's the detached garage that has, isn't that true?
Yes.
Yeah, the detached garage, they require further setback than the house itself.
Yeah, 10 foot minimum.
Mhm.
Not less than 6 foot of a lot.
There you go.
10 foot.
Right.
Mr. Stone?
Yeah, you guys are all speaking about what's the irony of this whole thing, is that, and I was on zoning, I got on zoning for situations that we were, where a developer came in and there were multiple lots, and he built houses on them. They're 50 feet wide, the village set precedent and allowed big variations on that, but yeah, you can build a house easier than you can build a garage on this lot. The house would have to be 10 feet from each side. I think 20% within the frontage and from the adjoining houses. They built 3,000 square foot houses on lots this big across the street from me, Kid Corner and Hazelwood. So in a way, in my mind, of course, I'm the guy who wants the garage, I'm saving the neighborhood from another house. Because if I really want a 3-car garage, then I ultimately have to go find another way to do it. One might be to look at my financial situation and what's the best thing to do. Best thing to do is to sell that lot, sell my house separate, sell the lot on the other side separate. Who wins there? And that's the irony of our zoning code. I don't want to beat you guys up on it or anything like that. I was trying to keep that in my pocket and not bring it up because they didn't want to piss anybody off. But, the irony of it. I've got, my neighbors around me. I don't know my neighbor behind me. I've never met him in the entire 20 years I've been there. I've tried to introduce myself. He hasn't shown interest, so I've let that go. But my other neighbors, we have a great community. We go to breakfast together. Tanner and Annika just had a winter solstice event at one of the Giada pavilions for the street. I mean, it's just such a great street. We don't want to leave.
Who is the neighbor behind you, by the way? Are they at Walters?
Steele.
Are they're on Walters?
Hemlock, yes.
Walters.
Walters, Hemlock,
Okay.
yeah, right.
Yeah. And he owns a lot of property back there.
Okay.
I just
Yeah, he
never
does.
met him. But yeah, my neighbors that I do know, both sides, The two people across the street have all written letters or given testimony here that they're okay with it. I think that's an important step to take into consideration. I would have no problem consolidating the lots once this was done. It just solves a lot of problems for us and keeps us here. And I'd also like to point out that I don't think there's a lot of houses left in our neighborhood that have 3 lots like this. So in a way, we do have more space than most of the people in the neighborhood.
Anything else from the board? Anything else from our audience? Yes.
My name's Rick Hodges. I'm a sub-lot 2, okay? I'm all the way to the top of for 35 years, Little Dell for 35 years. There's a couple of things I wanted to let people know they're not aware of. Where Bill's garage is right now used to be a lake. Okay, that's where the water ran down, and people who live next door to us, me and Freedy, okay, their 2 daughters swam in that lake. Okay, that's where the water came from. So it's all, you almost defy somebody to say, well, they have to fill that in, build it up and make it usable. Not sure that's gonna happen. Plus, when you add to that, the amount of water that comes down Hazelwood and across Fairview into Bill and my yard, a major rainstorm, which I have film of, was phenomenal. It's phenomenal. The last point I want to make is, regardless of the drawing and the proposed garage, I know Bill has taken an immense amount of time, and he's being very, very careful about how this will impact the neighborhood. And the neighbors are happy about that and pleased about that. And we trust Bill to do the right thing, because that's just the kind of person he is. He and Katie have been excellent, wonderful neighbors, just like the rest of the people who are on the street. And I have absolutely no problem with this whatsoever.
Appreciate your comments. All right, if there's nothing else, I will make a motion. There'll actually be 3 motions because we have 3 variance requests in front of us tonight. One for a height issue, one for a side yard setback, and one for a square footage variance. So I'll start with the height variance. For BZA case number 25-02 for the property located at 137 Fairview Road, I make a motion to approve an area variance of 8 feet for a proposed garage to permit a structure not to exceed 23 feet in height, subject to the consolidation of the 3 lots into 1 lot.
Second.
Are there comments from the board on the motion? Ruth?
Andy Hitchcock?
So I'm going to vote yes. I think the concerns that I had have been alleviated by the neighbors, by some of the plans. So, yes.
Mike Miller?
Yes.
John Buda?
Yes.
Martin O'Toole?
Yes.
Cindy Mateicha?
Yes.
All right, so we will move to our second motion. For BZA case number 25-02 for the property located at 137 Fairview Road, I make a motion to approve a side yard setback variance of 10 feet to permit an accessory structure no closer than 10 feet to the left or the south property line, subject to the consolidation of the existing 3 lots.
Second.
Any discussion on the motion?
Nope.
Ruth?
Andy Hitchcock?
Yes.
Mike Miller?
Yes.
John Buda?
Yes.
Martin O'Toole?
Yes.
Cindy Mateicha?
Yes.
All right, for the third and final motion, for BZA case number 25-02 for the property located at 137 Fairview Road, make a motion to approve an area variance of 638 square feet to permit an accessory structure no greater than 908 square feet, subject to the consolidation of all three properties, all three lots, excuse me.
Second.
Any questions or discussion on the motion? Okay. Ruth?
Andy Ishrak,
Yes?
Mike Lloyd,
Yes.
John Buda,
Yes.
Martin O'Toole,
Yes.
Virginia Page.
Yes.
Good luck with your building. Yeah.
I'm sorry, you had to sit. We went this so long. Thank you for your patience.
The drainage is a huge thing.
Oh, no.
It's terrible.
Thank you for coming out and looking at properties.
I drove past your house about 4 times.
There's no place else to put it on the map.
All right. That brings us to our final agenda item tonight. We've all, sure. What's that? Hey, got someone rooting for you? So next up is BZA case number 25-03. It is for an area variance or a side yard variance at 402 Reserve Trail. Who will be speaking on behalf of this tonight?
I can start. My name is Heather Davies with Davies Architecture. I'm here with the owners, Anna and Dave Newman. And we are asking for a side yard variance. They are hoping to add some square footage to their first floor. And they have an interesting shaped lot where it's kind of in a pie shape. And the area where we're trying to add on to off of the living room, it was very difficult to stay within the side yard setback. We actually tried very hard to kind of kink it, on the diagonal along the line to avoid it, but in the end, it was just very difficult to do. We are creating more of a, sunroom space that will, with a bathroom and storage area, which eventually could be used for a first floor primary suite. Because of the garage and the location, it is pushed back pretty far back, which is good in a sense that, from the street, you don't see much of it, but that, in a way hurt us because of the variance, but I think in the end, that was the right thing to do. They also have an existing side entry that leads into, a mudroom and laundry room that they wanted to keep. So that was a portion, that's also why we pushed it back. And we're creating a new covered entry for that existing doorway as well. We're trying to stay, we're matching all the existing materials as far as the siding and the roof pitch. They have gotten HOA approval, at least approval based on, you guys approving the area approving it. But their neighbors, if you guys want to say this, but it sounds like their neighbors in the HOA are, happy with the proposed addition as well.
I'm David Liam, and we're a blended family. I have 4 children. She has 3. And eventually, we would hope to make that a first floor master at some point. Our main business, we're physicians from the clinic, and our main practice is in Kent, Portage and Summit County. So we drive about almost an hour to work every day. We've looked at options of, bigger homes, bigger land. We just love the neighborhood. We love the home. We just need a little more space. So this is going to be, a good alternative for us instead of moving and having to do development all over again.
Yeah, even made our 7 kids do not fit our family room right now.
Spouses.
There's already spouses, so
Yeah.
Anything else? Okay. From the board, questions?
No, you're keeping the trees that I believe I saw in here, that you're going to keep them on that side right in there, so it doesn't go into their backyard, the view. Okay.
Well, some of the trees are gonna have to come out.
Yeah, I think, so
There's a
the
few.
survey doesn't show the exact tree location on the site plan, it's noted that the trees aren't exactly located there.
I pasted off today and I wound up in the trees, so, at the
Yeah.
corner.
Yeah, I think.
So not all of them, but some.
Yeah.
Right in that
There will-
corner.
Yeah.
We'll try to keep as many as we can before.
Mhm.
Well, you answered one question I had, and that is, I didn't want to assume what primary suite meant, but you answered that question, that someday that might be, that sunroom area, I presume, would be a bedroom.
Mhm.
Okay, because you've got everything else. You got the bathroom, the closet,
Yeah.
and et cetera, et cetera. Okay, I had a question about the trees, but you answered that one. It just seems like tonight's cases revolve around size and what somebody wants to have versus must have. And therefore, if this was smaller, it might fit without a variance. Anyway.
The people who live at, I'm looking at the map here, people who look at 404, do they have an opinion on this? They're not represented here.
All the neighbors on each side and across the street agreed, and we're fine with the plans.
They felt the addition would add value to their homes.
And they want to do additions next year.
Yeah.
Great, we'll be in business for a long time.
Yeah,
Tell them we're booked out several months in advance.
So, a question for you, Ms. Davies. So the gray area, the shaded area, is the proposed addition.
Correct, yes.
Approximately what percentage of that is currently within the existing setback?
That's a great
80%,
question.
85, like,
I would say 85, yes, because it's about it's almost a little under 800 square feet of proposed new space, and yeah, it is the back corner.
Okay.
So-
Just that back corner, that little pie, that little triangle there is only excess.
thank you. Mike, Cindy, Marty, questions, comments?
No.
Okay. Anything else from the homeowners, from our architect friends? All right. Well, then I will make a motion for BZA case number 25-03 for the property located at 402 Reserve Trail. I make a motion to approve a side yard variance of 8 feet to the left side yard to allow an addition to be no closer than 17 feet from the property line.
I second that.
Wonderful. Comments or questions on the motion? Ruth?
Andy Hitchcock,
Yes?
Mike Malloy,
Yes.
John Buda.
Yes.
Martin O'Toole.
Yes.
Cindy DeSpacia.
Yes.
Enjoy your new room.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Room.
All right, so we had 3 agenda items in front of us. We have checked those off the list. I do believe we have some old business to discuss.
All right, good night.
Thank you. Appreciate you coming. Mr. Herman?
So I'm gonna read a letter that I wrote, and our concerns are regarding the board decisions and actually meeting conduct. Specifically,
Can
I
you just give us a moment, there's some noise?
Sorry. Yeah.
And could you just come a little bit closer to the microphone? Thank you.
Somebody let her go.
He's gonna need that.
Yeah. you can- So again, Mitch Herman, Eileen Herman, 52 Daisy Lane. So I just, after the last meeting, Eileen and I sat down and we were able to finally review the tape. It was pretty exhausting, and we felt very, I'll just read it because that way my thoughts are square. We're writing or reading this on behalf of Eileen and myself to express our concerns regarding the recent meeting and decision-making process surrounding the matter of the fence variance request. Several troubling aspects of the experience warrant attention and reflection. One, we felt that it was an unstructured meeting and poor management. The meeting lacked focus and deviated significantly from the primary topic, the fence. This allowed for conversation to escalate. Primary topic was the fence, and again, these allowed it to unnecessarily escalate, creating an environment that both felt personal and hostile. The neighbor was permitted a dominant discussion with irrelevant and unfounded claims about our property, which exacerbated the tension and detracted from productive dialogue. Fabrications and misrepresentations. There was no fact checking. You all let him just talk. And several falsehoods were presented during the meeting. There was a claim about a lawyer going from his house to my house. That's not true. There was never, and I think it might have been actually Dave that might have drove into the driveway and then drove into my driveway, honestly. We never had gotten a hold of a lawyer to talk about any of this. That's number one. The claim regarding the changes of our walkway is entirely false. The walkway in the back remains in the same location, but was updated due to safety. That's just a fact. There were a lot of things, but the bias, it almost felt like there was bias and predetermined outcomes. You would talk to neighbors, but were you talking about the fence or were you talking about other things? Because the reality is, it sounded like there were other things that made your determination wasn't even about the fence. The meeting gave the impression that a decision had been made prior to hearing our perspective. And the reality is that some of you came over our house, and my specific comment was, what are we going to talk about? The fence. Nothing more. And that's where everything went awry. So again, this undetermined, undermines the trust and the fairness and the integrity of the process. The other thing that I want to say is that, the neighbor requested to prioritize the view over our rights to privacy. And it's unreasonable and concerning to us. Specifically, you can listen to the tape, and you heard it all. You all asked the question, what is the issue? And he wanted the view. That's what he said in his words on the tape. That's just ridiculous. But the other part of it was, we've taken care of this house. We've put everything in good taste. So if you ask the neighbors about, have we done things correctly? Have we done things that increase the value of the house? You can look at our property value. Our property value has doubled over the last 7 years. We moved into this house and we bought the house in 2017. We got the survey in 2018 because the neighbor had ran at Eileen and said, stop picking the weeds or the plants in the corner. And it was it was a little scary for her. And so I'm like, we're gonna need the variance, we need to find the survey anyway so that we can build the house anyways. Property was actually our property. That started everything. That was the end of the beginning of our relationship with the neighbor, but whatever. The other thing is, you're talking about, he knows a lot about me, what I do, but he doesn't know me because I'm a pharmacist, a graduate from Ohio State University. I work with oncology patients. I work, to create resources for oncology patients and healthcare professionals. I mean, nobody knows what I do. And the reality is that for the past decade, I've worked as a fourth angel mentor for cancer patients at the Cleveland Clinic because I'm a cancer survivor. And they use me to talk to patients all over the country so that I can ease their mind about what they're going through with chemotherapy. The other thing is, I have a therapy dog who's actually licensed, has $1 million bond on her, Great Dane Maggie, who actually sees, for the last 10 years, she's been with me at the Cleveland Clinic. She's gone to Pittsburgh, we've gone all over the state. She's been on the news, we've been with the Cavs, because she's another one that she's seen thousands of patients with me. So again, talk about character, this is not who I am. We don't want to argue with anybody. And I did try to give, options about the water, which had nothing to do with this meeting, but that's all off the table because, it just seemed like it doesn't matter. So, just moving forward, I just urge to reflect on what happened at that meeting. And Eileen and I felt like we were owed an apology because it just went totally awry from everything that we had talked about and what was on the agenda for the day. So, again, we'll move forward, with what we have to do. We understand what you voted, but I also think it was emotional for you and all the pressure that the neighbor put on you all. And it became totally, it wasn't about the fence anymore. It was about his feelings and what he thought and what he was bullying. And again, that's how we feel like we live next to that every day. You have no idea. So take one person's perspective. And the other thing is, this is not an HOA. In 2011, they lapsed all of the colonies did not put their paperwork in through the state and Geauga County. There was an email came out last year, and it was from the board. It was not even a board, and raised the question of, we are not an HOA. We're going to file for it. And we all said the same thing. Why do we need to file for an HOA? What do we need that for? What's the cost? $10,000 to file? For what? It's not anybody, there's no property that's owned by everybody. That's like separate that we use as a community, like Lake Lucerne or like any of these other communities that have lakes or tennis courts or whatever. There's none of that in this community. So I asked the question to the president at the time, and I have it on email, and I said, we moved in 2017. You all said this was an HOA, but it's not an HOA. So we're choosing to take ourselves out of the HOA. Because again, we're not getting along with a neighbor. We're having all these, we felt like we just wanted to be by ourselves. We didn't move into the property because of the neighborhood. We moved into the property because of the house, the location, and my sisters and my family all live in the area. So it just made it easier for us. And we wanted privacy. That's why we moved there. And the reality is yes, there's some great neighbors in the area, but it's a neighborhood, nothing with an HOA. And so again, all these things that came up, I just feel like we were not given a fair shake. Again, yes, we didn't do it the right way. That's on me. It's not, I didn't have the right person to do it the right way. But you gave 807, I think it's 807 Bell Road, 6 inches variance on the east side and the west side of the property for a fence. 6 inches. And there was no issue. But because somebody decided to make it very personal, we need to get a variance. So now we'll take it down at a cost of whatever it's gonna cost me, another $4,000 I have to pay, and I'm gonna put the fence up, I'm gonna put a board-on-board fence, and it's gonna be 3 feet off the property line. And the reality is that I don't care what he thinks about his view or not, because it's not fair what we're doing, what's going on with us. We just want our privacy. We don't want to sit in our backyard and look at the neighbor, and the other neighbor has a fence on the other side, same thing. Nothing was said about that fence. Again, he talks about making rules after the fact. How many people make rules after the fact in this, or don't even ask for permission? They just do it. No one says anything. So again, we brought it to you. We understand your ruling, but the point is that just the way it was all handled was really poor and very upsetting to us. But we'll do it the right way. I'm not gonna have to worry about coming back to you guys for another variance. We're gonna get the permit, put it in. We'll have, it'll be Wayne Erickson Construction. They live in South Russell. He'll pull the permit, he'll do everything that he has to do, and it'll be 3 foot off the line, and that'll be it. But again, it's just unfortunately, it's gonna cost us $8,000 at the end of the day to put fencing. I think that's just ridiculous, but we're doing it. So that's my thoughts. I don't know what you guys can say or do, but I think, I listened to some of the comments today, and I think you did the right things today, honestly, for these people, because they're only bettering the property. And they're only doing things that, make sense. But rules from 1970 make no sense anymore when you can't get on the other side of the fence anyways because it's all dirt. You know, it's not, you're not mowing the lawn. I mean, you're just, you know, whatever, the rules, you know, the rules are the rules. You guys can set them and make them to whatever fits that person. But for us, unfortunately, it didn't work. If I had 5 neighbors that said, yes, we don't mind it, that's great. It would be fine. But I had one neighbor who just didn't like it, and that's the way it is, because he wanted the view. So we'll make that, you know, we'll make the concession, we'll spend the money, but reality is that honestly, I still think, and I think that, you know, some kind of an apology should come from you all and figure out how you're gonna do better next time, because it happens all, you know, you see this every day, and most of the times it doesn't happen like this, as Mayor and I talk about. This doesn't occur. We had a meeting afterward, Eileen and I met with them, and we talked about it, it was very unfair, and we felt it was disturbing. I mean, so that's all I got to say, but I felt we just needed to bring it to life. You know, we don't want to have animosity with South Russell. We live here. We pay taxes here. We're not planning on moving, you know. I have a pond. I told my kids when I'm done, throw me in. Bury my ashes, put my ashes in it or something, you know what I mean? I mean, we plan on, this is a legacy house. It's going to be given to our kids. It's already in the trust. So that's just the way it's going to be, you know.
We appreciate your feedback. I will say that. As far as the board is concerned, we do our best. It's unfortunate that you didn't feel that that was a representation of this board. To be fair, I'm not going to apologize to you for it. I think this board of volunteers does fantastic work. The decision you got wasn't to your liking.
It wasn't the decision.
And I can appreciate
it. Had to do with it.
I can appreciate that.
When I was trying to protect us and talk about us, and you guys kept on saying no, and you bring it back to the fence, but whenever he talked about water or whatever he was talking about, which was nothing, and then we talked about my gutters or shedding water more than, well, first of all, I have leaf guard and I have everything drained. So the reality is that is not true. But I'm just saying, you guys decided to let him overtake the meeting and did not stop it. And the reality is that
I will just add, I do think we tried to stop it. I do, and just to be fair and transparent, I voted in favor of allowing you to keep your fence.
I know you did.
So I know that everybody interprets this and they did their job, and I understand that it didn't go your way. And we have not been, as far as I've been on this board, I've not been a part of a meeting like that. And I agree, it was definitely unfortunate how it went down and how we tried to keep everybody on track. We tried to redirect you and redirect him. I personally tried both sides, so I could say I take that was a difficult meeting for this board. It's not typical, and like Andy says, we do our best. Like that was a different than what we typically see. I mean, I really do feel for you. I sympathize with the fact that you have this cost. You know, I try to take that into consideration. I understand that, but the fact that you have this going on with your neighbor, but the zoning law is what the zoning law is, and.
But it worked for some people, doesn't work for other people.
I understand that.
And his point was the same way. He said that in his words, and you can read back, but guaranteed that the reality is 75% of the conversation was him talking.
I understand that, and we tried to redirect that.
I think the reality would have been better just to stop the meeting and just, say, we're voting against you, Mr. Roman. It would have been a lot better than driving us through the mud. The reality is, and you all, I don't know what your thoughts are when you went home, but, my wife is pretty upset because he said some pretty nasty things about her. And the reality is that, again, we have no idea who we are as people and, how do we treat the community and what we do for, outside of our just daily lives to give back. So again, I just think it's just unfortunate. He knows more about me than I know about me.
I will agree, it was an unfortunate meeting.
Yes.
I was exhausted by the time we were finished, and had an opportunity to reflect on it and thought, boy, it could have gone differently, no doubt about it. As Mike said, I think we did our best to manage it. We can do better in everything that we do, and we will do better. It is unfortunate that that's how it went, regardless of the outcome. I don't think anyone would sit back and say, boy, that was our shining moment. But again, we're here to do the best we can as volunteers for the village. And I do appreciate your feedback, and it is not falling on deaf ears. Please understand that.
I suggest we move on.
One second, Mr. Herman, just so you know, this is not part of the record of what happened at the previous meeting. So please understand that what you just talked about here, first of all, you were not sworn in.
I did.
Well, okay, but you were not on the agenda, so.
Well, I can come back and be on the agenda.
No, what I'm telling you though is
If I don't mind, I can actually
Hold on a
take the
second.
letter.
You have certain legal rights, and so we really can't be doing this back and forth as to what you want to recreate or revisionist history or talk about what happened before. That is not part of the record as to what happened. So this is a totally different matter as far as, your legal rights are concerned. So please understand that. This is not part of what happened previously. It's not going to be part of a record if in fact you do appeal the board's decision.
I'm not appealing anything, because I don't want to go to Geauga County for any of this stuff.
Okay.
I'll tell you what, a letter in the Trinidad Valley Times would be pretty nice to see. And I mean, again, you're just basically, you just dismissed us. Again.
Not at all.
Yes, you all
I'll
did.
tell you what your legal rights are and to understand that what you just said tonight is not part of what happened
I'm trying to be a
previously.
bigger person, and try to give you guys a little bit of courtesy, and reality is that meeting was a disaster. And so you can say all you want, but the reality is that you can't say, you should do better, and we're sorry, but instead, again, and it's just disappointing again, because, we're still living here, and we'll do it the right way next time, but that's all I gotta say. But I still can't believe that, at the end of the day, nobody will step up. That's what you're saying to me.
Not at all, but thank you for coming.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you very much. Good evening.
Do we have any new business for the agenda tonight?
Technically, that would have been new business, not business.
I'm sorry.
Did he reach out to you to ask to be on the agenda? How did we know he was coming?
When he walked in, I told Andy this should be under,
No, it's new business,
should have been old business.
and it should never.
My mistake.
It should never happen. If he has an issue, he can go to council, because the whole appeal process now is a big problem. So we have to be very careful of who we talk to once the appeal time has not run. Please understand that.
With no new business on the agenda, I will call this meeting to a close at 8:32.
Take a.
No, Mayor, I need to meet with everybody. I'm going to be careful on this kid stuff, because I'm going to call you.
Oh, okay. Would you let
Let
Ruth know? Thank you.
the timeline for appeal, and if they don't.
That was a